For me, being the guide on this journey brings me a lot of joy. So my name is Austin Powell, and I have just recently retired from a 28-year career in law enforcement, where I have served in both uniformed and plainclothes operations for both local and federal agencies. When we think about what the ideal student would be for this forensic science course, I think we can kind of look at this in a couple different ways. One is maybe that student who already knows that they have an interest in forensic related topics. We're going to cover a lot of different topics in this course. And they may have an interest in that. Maybe they've seen a TV show about it, and they've had ideas about what they think crime scene investigators might do. There's also those who think that a career in criminal justice would be interesting for them, but they're not really sure where they fall in that. There may be those that are actually pre-medical students who may be interested in this, because this forensic science, we're going to talk about professions from crime scene investigators, photographers, latent print examiners, but we're also going to talk about medical fields. We're going to talk about forensic pathology, and we're going to talk about those who may have actually gone to medical school but then specialize in areas like pathology that are going to be very much related to some of the topics we're going to talk about. But when we look about or think about the age for the student, I don't think there's a particular age. I think there's a level of maturity that needs to be required. And especially if we're talking about homeschool students, because it's hard to put an age or a grade on homeschool students, right? But we are going to talk about some very, very sensitive topics in this area, specifically in the areas of pathology, where we're going to actually see either videos or still images that involve autopsies. And seeing images of deceased individuals that are in perhaps disturbing conditions to the normal person who isn't really exposed to that. So I would say that the student would have to have a little higher level of maturity to be able to deal with those very sensitive areas. There are going to be areas like fingerprint analysis, or firearms examination, or forensic pathology. Those are three big areas. But even within those areas, there are subsets of specializations within those 15 areas that we're going to talk about in this course. So I am very excited to expose them to all these various different branches and subsets of forensic science. We don't have a crime problem in the world. We have a sin problem in the world. And if you realize that because of the fallen nature of our world, there are those who don't have a relationship with Christ that are going to act out in ways in which truly are heinous and evil. And what I would encourage students to realize is that God places people like forensic analysts or law enforcement officers or the medical examiners in these roles for a specific purpose. Number one, to bring justice to those who may have had a wrong done to them. Secondly, to bring closure and answers for family and loved ones that may have had someone close to them be a victim of these crimes. You really truly can be a minister and the hands and feet of God to folks in these professions that you don't get to be if, let's say, you're just pursuing, being an accountant or a lawyer. Great professions. But in these realms of forensic science, there is an opportunity here to truly be a minister to friends, family, and loved ones if you're going to pursue this line of work for your career or calling. I would even say these opportunities are more callings for people, because you're going to be able to see some of the worst of humanity. When we ask the students to look at the forensic science from a biblical worldview, I would say that there are a couple of avenues in which we're going to do that. When you start to look at some of these topics, let's just take fingerprints, for example, and how we actually discuss how fingerprints are created in the womb, and the wonders and miracle of creation that God has built into just developing our fingerprints. And you really see that God's fingerprints are on these things. That we're going to discuss certain things within the scientific realm that really could only be explained from a creationist perspective. I know that we're going to take very good care of making sure that they are prepared for what they're going to be seeing and doing. So I would say for the students, understand that this is going to require a little bit higher level of maturity for dealing with this. And I have already had some students in my live classes say, I really thought I was ready. I've walked through this with my mom or my dad to prepare myself for today's lesson. But when we talk about it, it's one thing to see the image in the textbook. It's another thing to hear about it, and that's what I'm bringing to the particular aspect of teaching, is that I will teach you from a real world perspective. Here's the image. Let me tell you about a circumstance where I dealt with this exact same thing on the job. But it's very important information, and we need people with a biblical worldview in these arenas because of the high level of sensitivity dealing with these tragedies.